So in this video, I want to wrap up our discussion about freedom. So far we have looked at freedom is factual, and then normative, and within normative freedom we looked at negative freedom, positive freedom, and obviously we can, even within factual freedom, we can put negative freedom, positive freedom. But the main discussion we have had in terms of factual freedom was nature versus nurture. And within nurture, what we really focused on was socialization. And one of the things which we looked at, firstly, we saw that factual freedom is the condition of the possibility normative freedom. So without actual freedom in the sense of capacity, either negative or positive, we can't raise the question of normative freedom. That's why we focused on factual freedom. And within factual freedom, we saw that the mechanism through which we express our freedom, and our freedom is related to our actions. And what governs our action is either our biological needs, our desires. And desires can be natural as well as social. But we said most our natural desires are based on our biological needs, and most of our social desires are actually the product of socialization. So our desire to act beyond, and that's what involves freedom, beyond our biological needs, is the product of socialization. So what we desire would vary according to the type of socialization, the type of society we live in, the type of society we have grown in. So in that sense, most of our desires are artificial. By artificial, I don't mean that they aren't real, but artificial mean they are not natural. They are the product of our socialization, the product of our imagination, the product of our freedom and the interaction of our capacities with other members of societies, and the dominant belief systems or worldviews, education system, and ideologies play a huge role in determining what we desire and what we don't desire. So in that sense, the whole, if freedom in the normative sense depends on socialization of our desires, then that means that freedom itself in the normative sense, beyond our biological needs, is also artificial, also a product of our socialization, product of the type of society we live in, product of our belief systems, worldviews, ideologies. So the whole freedom, the pursuit of freedom and justification for freedom is ideological. And different ideologies, different worldviews will have different conceptions of negative and positive freedom. That's just a factual thing. It's nothing to do with so-called relativism. So the whole debate about freedom is civilizational, artificial product of our socialization. So in different societies, we would have different set of desires. Different set of desires. In different societies, we have different views about what is worth desiring, what should be desired, and what shouldn't be desired. And the type of society we live in makes it so that's why one of the things we said last time was that just because certain desires are available, meaning as possibilities, so in a society, certain desire would be available as possibility, certain desire won't be even available. So for example, for a Jew or a Muslim, eating a pork, there's no desire to eat a pork. So it's not it's not a natural desire to eat or not eat a pork, for example. So certain desires are available as possibilities, but certain desires are not even as they are not even horizon. And even if certain desires are available as possibilities, doesn't mean that one would necessarily desired or desire. Or also, even if somebody desires or desire, one should desire those desire. I can give a lot of examples, but I just wanted to get to the next point is that what you desire on the whole depends on your socialization, etc., and your overall view of the world. And different civilizations have different ideas about what should be, what is the set of existing desire, what should be desired, what should not be desired. Now, the dominant civilization at the moment is what we call capitalism. And capitalism is a civilization which is unique civilization in that it considers freedom as an intrinsic value. In the normative sense. And what it means is that unlike, for example, Christianity and Islam, where freedom is merely an instrumental value as a means for some higher values, for example. And we can argue that in Islam and Christianity and even Judaism, the central value is worship of the essence of or the origin of this reality and the governor of this reality, which we call God. So worship is an intrinsic value in certain civilization, and freedom in that sense is intrinsic value is the exact opposite of worship. So in capitalism you have freedom has intrinsic value, which means that really that what capitalism is based on is the sovereignty of desire. So desires are the ultimate masters, because desires is the most valuable thing in capitalism, and that's why the ideologies of capitalism, like utilitarianism, on which economics is largely justified, are based on the idea that fulfilling desires, that is seeking pleasure, which is the outcome of desire, and avoiding pain, which is the consequence of our not being able to fulfill our desire, is the supreme moral principle. And economics tell us that our desires are infinite and resources are scarcity. And this scarcity mentality is important because through that you inculcate in people this competition to for fulfilling your desires before others, and secondly, on the general level, this constant and instant struggle to overcome this scarcity through technological means, through science or whatever. But the point I wanted to get to is this, that capitalism, which is based on a unique civilization, which is based on intrinsic value of freedom and sovereignty of desire, also but reveals to us that it is not it is not natural for humans to dedicate their life for fulfilling desires. That's why one of the hurdles, or one of the dilemma, or one of the challenges capitalism faces throughout its history, for example, is the problem of overproduction. Even though the science, economics, which is the religion of capitalism, really keep telling us that there is scarcity, what we live in actually is we live in the age of abundance, real, in fact. And overproduction is a constant problem for capitalism, and that's because human desires are limited, in fact. That's why capitalism needs to make sure that that desires are created and recreated through different artificial means. So otherwise the whole system will collapse, because the system is based on the idea that our desires are infinite or indeterminate, and the resources are scarce. So that's why instigation of desire, creation and recreations of desires, and multiplication of desires is a constant challenge and task for capitalist system of governance. So because we don't naturally desire those desires, that's why we are constantly manipulated, instigated, so that we create more desires are created, and we are lured to those desires. And naturally, to do that, you have to focus on relatively weak points of human nature. That is mainly your instincts, your biological desires, and your emotions, and use these to multiply your desire. That's one, and there's other mechanisms. I don't want to go into that at this point, but there's a whole sciences are so-called sciences are created or institutionalized to create demand. So creation of demand is a standard capitalist technique to sell thing creation, demand creation, and demand management. And that's why as capitalism progresses, advertisement become very important in different ways. And also entertainment in various ways become important, because through entertainment you can create a lot of desires which are otherwise. That's why media of all sorts is important, through television, through films, through fictions. So fiction is very important. These bombardment of creating new imagination in your head, so you are constantly living in a state of scarcity, state of privation, where you feel like that you have to get you have to get and if you contrast this to Christian and Islamic civilization, where the whole system, I'm not talking about classical Christian Islamic civilization was like purification of soul and desires is one of the most important institution in both civilization and Islam through tasawwuf, and in Christianity through monasticism and all other things. And as against capitalism, the whole idea of Christian and Islamic systems and others, other traditional religions. But I know a bit more about these. That's why I keep and so as against capitalist system of creating desires and instigating desires and creating an environment in civilization where desires are constantly instigated, created, multiplies. In Islamic Christian civilization, the whole basis of, or the foundation of the system of spirituality and is purification of desires, is based on reduction of desires. Reduction of desires, because one of the things about desires is that once you desire something and you don't keep control over your desires, then desires really become your master rather than you. So reduction of desire, like in Islamic tasawwuf, for example, there are 4 principles like reducing eating, reduction in your sleeping, reduction is in your speech, reduction in your socialization. And the whole purpose is not that these things are desire for their own sake, but through that you make sure that desires don't rule you. You rule the desires. So that's basically sums up this mapping of freedom. So in the future we'll try to develop these ideas a bit further. Thank you.